All right. Well, should we get started, everybody? So we got Bijan here and Guerre as well from REM5. So guys, feel free to pop in and make comments whenever you would like. But first thing we usually do with this is just kind of go through what we're doing here, why we're here. So I'll share this little presentation and kind of give a little background in where this kind of ties into what we're doing at REM5. So REM5, we're here to bring immersive technologies to you. So usually that's virtual reality, but today and this week at an innovation lab, we're going to be talking a little bit about virtual reality, a little bit about augmented reality as well. So a lot of different things using some of the same kind of underlying technologies, but they're used very differently. If you were with us last week, remember we talked a little bit about how you can do augmented reality with your phone. So we'll kind of expand on that a little bit this week. The cool thing with Youth Innovation Lab is that we get to bring this to young people who are going to be the people who are going to be driving this industry and be the people creating stuff, 10 years, 5, 10 years from now. You guys are really the future of this industry. So I want you to know as much as you can, and we'll try to share everything that we know, and we'll kind of learn together. All right, I'm going to skip that a little bit. So to kind of go back and talk about the different types of technology there are. So there's 360 images and 360 videos. So those are going to be similar concepts. Got a device like the Google Cardboard is going to be a great device for looking at 360 images or 360 video. An image, just a still image, just take a snapshot in time, just like a picture, but you can look all around it, all around you. And a 360 video is going to be the same thing, but in video form. Virtual reality, well, the way we talk about it is going to be a fully digital environment. So everything that you see is going to be virtual. And as a result, if you have the right equipment, you can move around in that environment and interact with the environment as well. So that's a piece of technology that we're really excited about because it provides so many options for use going forward. Mixed reality is really mixing reality. So maybe you're holding a baseball bat or you're holding a paintbrush even, and then blending that with virtual reality. So we've tried using a baseball bat with some of the VR baseball games, and you can actually swing a real bat and hit a virtual ball. So that would be what we call mixed reality, kind of mixing reality and virtual reality. And then augmented reality is when you're taking reality and you're basically putting something digital on top of it. So think of like a Snapchat filter, or we'll show you some of the design tools that we can use later today. But really, you're taking a digital image. Pokemon. What is that? The Pokemon.
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go, yes, is really popular. So those are a couple of the most popular use cases for augmented reality. And then within each of these, there really is a good, better, and best. So for something like 360 videos, this is a good device. It's not the best device, but it's really good for kind of getting started. And then same thing with virtual reality. You can get into virtual reality and have kind of a lower end device. Actually, an Oculus Quest is a really awesome device, but it's not the highest quality. What we use at REM5 is the HTC Vive Pro. So that's going to be among the best options possible. And so we're trying to really bring that premium to everybody when you're at REM5. So that's kind of the background on what the technology looks like. And the reason that we're excited about this industry overall is because, like PC and mobile, this is going to change the way we work, the way we learn, the way we play, and the way we socialize. So we're doing a couple of these things here today. We're trying to teach you, so learn a little bit about this technology, and we're going to talk a little bit about work stuff too. So that maybe doesn't sound fun, but it should be a pretty fun way to work in the future. And the applications are pretty limitless, but education, architecture, and design, which is something that we're going to be talking a lot about today, storytelling, law enforcement, health and wellness, and then training are a couple of good options. All right. So any questions about that before we kind of dive into our content for the day? And let's see, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat here.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get like the lenses? Like, what lenses do you use? Do you use like glasses lenses or like telescope lenses for like the eye holes?
For in like the
Yeah.
the Google Cardboard?
Or
So
no,
these
like a HTC Vive.
the lenses that are on the inside?
Yeah.
So these are basically a special designed lens that's going to allow you to see the whole screen. So yeah, it's called a Fresnel lens, but it's a specially designed lens that basically focuses your vision and makes it clear for you. So yeah, just a special kind of lens. Yeah, okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is industrial design and design using VR and augmented reality. So does anybody have any ideas what industrial design is? And let me share this little presentation here. So industrial design is really just a fancy way of saying the design of products and objects that people use. All right, so sounds really fancy, but it's really nothing more than that. So here's a few things that were designed by industrial designers. So you can see some pictures there of a couple people designing things. I think the lady on the bottom is making a motorcycle helmet. The lady on the top is creating a car. And you can see a picture of I think it's a Corvette there in the middle. There's an iPhone on the left. It looks like a gaming chair in the top left, and then some smartwatch concepts there in the bottom right. So these are the kind of things that industrial designers do. You know, might be industrial engineers, might be artists, might be mechanical engineers, might be computer programmers. There's all kinds of different ways you can get into this kind of a field. So any ideas who some famous industrial designers are? BJ and Guerre, you have any guesses here? I don't know if anybody's popping up on chat.
Oh
I'm
man,
gonna give you
I think I have no idea.
I'm gonna give you my favorite.
Who's your favorite?
Tony Stark.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is good.
So this is kind of an interesting way to think about design. But when he's creating these Iron Man suits, that's really what he's doing he's doing industrial design. So you're pulling in all kinds of technical things. You're doing some art, doing all kinds of different skill sets all in one thing. And if you look at those movies, what he's doing is actually a lot of augmented reality, because he's got the digital dials he's turning and the screens that he's working with right in front of him. So that's really a good example of an industrial designer. Maybe not a real life person, but a good example. The next person, maybe the most famous real life industrial designer, is Johnny Ive. You may not have heard of him, but he created all these devices. So the Mac, the iPhone, in the top right, he's holding the iPod. It looks like the first iPod mini, and the Apple Watch. So what his job at Apple was to create the design that all these tools look like. So when you're touching and feeling Apple devices, that's really something that he was involved with. All right. So I just wanted to give you some examples of where these kind of concepts are being used, because it's actually really interesting. It's really interesting work, and it could be really cool jobs that industrial designers are doing, and then they're starting to use a lot of these tools as well. All right, so one thing I didn't talk about in here in this kind of design phase is architects and engineers. So that's another space that a lot of people are starting to use virtual reality, augmented reality, and 360 video. So I did want to show you one really cool way that we've actually used some augmented or some 360 video here. So you might recognize this. This is REM5.
Yep. You're on
And
like
this is-
maps.
So this is using a technology called Matterport. So what this is they came in and took a whole bunch of 360 images, and then you can walk through the space, and you can even go into one of the pods. And
That's sick.
then if you, all right, just to say, so if you see remember we, if you were with us last week, we talked about the Google Cardboard. So see this button in the bottom right? I can click on that. And then I can open this, what's called Matterport in my, let's turn it this way. In my Google Cardboard. And now I can do the same thing. So it's loading up REM5 VR Lab. And I can look all around this space. And with these little dots, you might be able to see I can actually move around just by looking at them.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So this is using 360 videos for reality. So trying to show something that's real and be able to send it to somebody else and show it to somebody else. So this is something that real estate people and architects are using today to show things that that people are doing in real life. Another way that we're doing something similar is with a program called Iris Prospect. And what we can do with that, so I can show you here, is actually show, we can walk through a building that doesn't even exist yet. So this is an example of, this is a stadium. Looks like there's a football field here and then some sort of concert stadium here. And if I remember right, you guys do not have audio here. So, but you can have multiple people in headsets, just like this guy right here, and walk around and be pointing at the design, see what it looks like, feels like, make notes on notepads, and then share those with people afterwards. So we've actually had a lot of, sorry, what was that? So we've had a lot of companies actually use this at REM5. Guerra has been there for some of these, and we've had 10 to 12 people in headsets walking around the same virtual space at the same time. So that's pretty cool to see. And actually at our design camp this summer, we have a company that's building a plant is gonna let kids go through and walk through that plant, and the designer of that plant is gonna help kind of explain what's going on, kind of walk through this plant with everybody, and be able to talk to everybody in the headset, like you see here. These people have their names on top of them, and then they move around just like people move in real life.
So you can make stuff that don't exist yet and put it in VR and make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So what it does is you draw this in a computer-aided design program, so a CAD program, and you draw this up, and then usually what you would do before VR existed is you would print those drawings out on a piece of paper, and then you would talk about them with everybody. But with VR, you can actually go into that space, walk around that space and experience it, see what it feels like, see what the space is like. You know, if you think about, like, if you're designing a house and you want to design a kitchen, okay, well, how big does that kitchen need to be? If you're putting an island in, does that need to be 3 feet from the cabinets? Does it need to be 4 feet from the cabinets? What does that feel like? What does that space feel like? So, so yeah, that's a really great use for it. And that's actually kind of the kind of stuff
Weird.
that we're doing right in at REM5 sometimes.
Yeah, it's real weird.
So yeah, that's one good use case for virtual
So,
reality.
like,
So any questions?
Feel like you're in the future. Like it feels like you're in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
Exactly
like in the home screen on VR when you're in REM5, it'll show like you're kind of in a future area too.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and what's cool is you can create all kinds of new spaces too. So 1 minute you can be walking around a stadium, the next minute you can be walking around a house, the next one you might be walking around a park that somebody's designing.
Or a pit of lava.
Or a pit of lava, yeah.
So
All right.
it's
So
like
yeah.
also like virtual roller coasters, like to use the same tech.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the same kind of concepts behind it. So anything that you're building, you're basically just pulling in those, what we call them, assets, right? So so sometimes you're pulling in a building and then you're walking around that building. Sometimes you're pulling in a roller coaster and then you're riding around that roller coaster.
I know,
So
but it's also kind of confusing because like you actually have to use the thumb pad and you can't just normally walk because then that would just make you just crash into a bunch of stuff. You need a lot of open space. So that's why they made like a thumb pad so you can move forward. And on a roller coaster, it moves on its own and you don't have to move at all.
yes, yep, that is true. So that thumb pad, what that does is allows you to warp around the space. So you can point at something, just like even like I was doing on the Google Cardboard there. So you want to move to a different spot in REM5 and see a different image. You can just look at that and it'll pop you over to that different space. So you're just warping around is what we call it.
Yeah, and more headsets are trying to create ways that you can use more like actual physical space. Like you were saying, sometimes it needs a lot of physical space if you want to move around, and it's really nice to be able to do that. So some headsets like the Quest will let you set up in a wider area that you can actually move around in so you can get a better sense of space. But that has a lot of its own problems that come with it, which makes it really tough to do that, hence using a thumb pad or a teleporter or something, because that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And like sometimes like you like just like one of the buttons makes you like walk in the game but not realize, but also it feels like very weird because I once jumped off a building like that and it felt
You mean in Walk
I
the
was
Plank?
actually jumping off a building.
Yeah, so then one of the things that designers who are making these experiences and also us at REM5 who are putting people in experiences really have to think about is what makes you start to feel funny is when your eyes and your ears think different things are going on. So your ears are actually what controls your balance. Okay, so it's in your inner ear, and your eyes then also give you another reference point. So when you get motion sickness, like you're sitting in a car, so you're sitting in a car and your body is telling you, okay, you're sitting down. But then if you look outside and you watch the world flying by you, your eyes are saying, wait a second, you're not sitting down, you're driving 60 miles an hour down the highway. So then your mind gets confused about what's going on, and that's how motion sickness happens. So the same thing kind of happens in VR, but backwards. So now your mind is telling you if you're on a roller coaster, hey, you're on this roller coaster, and your body's going, no, you're not. You're sitting in your living room. What are you talking about? So that's actually how motion sickness happens. That's why at REM5 we really try to stay away from motion-based experiences. So we wouldn't ever put you in a roller coaster. We try to stay away from games that have too much motion in them. There's actually been a lot of really expensive games that have come out that people have been really excited about, and we've decided not to show them because there's too much motion in them. So that's really something that we think a lot about because we really don't want people feeling motion sickness in virtual reality. But that's one of the reasons that warping has become really popular because then you can move around in a space. but you don't have to sort of feel like you're moving, if that makes sense.
So like you're saying you can go like sick if you move or when you like move around so much, but you're really just sitting down or standing.
Right, exactly, because your eyes and your ears get confused about what's going on.
Yeah, so like if you were like in VR and somebody actually had just a computer that would move on its own, like they would have to control the computer to move. Your body would also kind of be confused too, because they would think, well, I'm not moving, but in VR I'm moving. But your brain's just like, but we are moving. But like your legs are like, no, we're not, because you're in VR and you're not moving.
Yeah, exactly.
So like it's like I'm moving, and the other body parts are like, no, you're not, and like I'm moving, and
Yeah.
like, no, you're not, no, you're not, and they get so confused they like explode.
Yeah, but different, basically.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we just don't. We want to make sure that
Dead like a creeper.
we want to make sure that people aren't confused. Their bodies don't get confused, their minds don't get confused, because we don't want to have any emotions.
Yeah, like Minecraft
With
when you
virtual
play it
reality.
in VR and you get to like move with your.
Yep.
It's gonna be like all weird.
Yep. All right. So now I want to move on to our next thing I wanted to talk about. This one brings augmented reality into the picture, and I'm going to show you a program called Arrow. So I'm going to share my screen here again. All right, so this is called Adobe Arrow. So what this is doing is you're actually building your own scene in VR, and you can even bring in things that you built yourself. Okay, so with augmented reality, and I'll just kind of cover this again for those of you who weren't with us last week, what the phone is trying to do right now is trying to determine where a flat surface is. Okay, so what I've done is I've put a couple pieces of tape on this table here. So what that's doing is it's giving some reference points to the phone. So if you have a flat surface, but it's a glossy surface, like maybe a granite countertop or a really glossy piece of concrete, or something like that, the camera won't actually know where that surface is. It kind of gets confused by mirrored surfaces. So that's why we put pieces of tape down here like this, just kind of in a random pattern, so that it knows where it is. So now if you look at this surface here, see how these dots are all really evenly spaced? So that means that the system really knows, okay, this is where the surface is, this is where it's flat, and I'm going to be able to create a really nice anchor here. So this is what this is called, is replacing an anchor. So I'm going to place this anchor right by this piece of tape here, and you can see it's creating this virtual grid. Okay, so now in this program, what you're able to do is pull in all kinds of different models. Okay, so remember we were talking about assets? So sometimes that asset might be a building that you're going to walk around. Sometimes that asset might be a roller coaster. So we're not condoning roller coasters in virtual reality.
What is this game called again?
Arrow, A-E-R-O. It's called Adobe Arrow.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to just
What was the game
Adobe?
last time we played? The game was like the kingdom and the story, like someone ran to the castle.
That's StoryFab.
StoryFab. Yep.
StoryFab.
How do you spell whatever and then arrow?
A-D-O-B-E.
It's also in the chat.
A-D-O-B-E. Yeah.
And then A-E-R-O.
I know how to spell arrow though.
All right, so with this one, we can create all kinds of different assets and move these assets around. So these are a little bit simpler assets than what we were using in the one that we tried last week. So, so we're gonna just place maybe a box here. Let's maybe put a piece of furniture. Let's put a chair over here.
it's not showing the app.
Why don't you, if you want to put a note in the chat, maybe Guer can help you out here while I'm doing this. And then I'm going to put a little toy robot in here too.
Wait, is it A-E-R-O?
A-E-R-O, yep, that's correct.
Okay, I got it now.
All right, so now I want to move this guy around. I'm going to spin him. So what I'm doing is I'm touching this guy with both my fingers. So I've clicked on him one time with one finger to select him. And then one finger, I can move him around. And then this other finger, I can.
Wait, can I get the app right now?
I already have it.
All right,
Oh,
and then once I have these guys selected, what I can do is I can do behaviors. There's behaviors at the bottom. So I can click on that, and I can say, when I tap on this guy, what he's gonna do is he's gonna spin around. Okay?
Whoa.
And then I'm gonna select this chair.
Oh, you have to sign in?
I'm gonna make a behavior here, so when I tap on this,
Make it walk.
what it's gonna do is it's gonna disappear. All right, maybe let's check that out. All right, so now we're gonna preview this. So I'm gonna hit record here. Tap on that guy, he spins around just like he's supposed to. I'm gonna tap on this chair. Boom,
Bye.
disappears. So what this program is used for, the one that we talked about last week, is really made for building stories. What this one is used for is if you want to create your own content, so you want to create, you know, maybe a building. Let's see, we can pull in some different things here. I think we've got here's a backdrop. So we can actually pull in kind of some interesting things here and place them all around. So if you're a product designer, okay, you might use this to show off a product that you're trying to do. So let's say you're designing a car. Now, instead of bringing a picture of that car, you can actually build an augmented reality app and actually pull that in. So remember, we talked about roller coasters being assets or the building being assets. Now you can kind of pull those things in and create your own experience with these. It's a little bit different than what we have talked about before, but a really powerful use for technology that you have right here on your phone. So that's a really fun one to play with. And if you get into it with something like Tinkercad, you can even create your own assets for this one and pull in your own designs. Does that make sense? All right, and a couple other things I wanted to show you. Okay, so when we talk about creating different things, so how do you create these assets? Well, I will show you right here. One way to do this is to create them in virtual reality. So this is a program called Gravity Sketch. So Gravity Sketch is a tool that car companies are using to create cars. So what this guy's doing, you can see him on the bottom left there. He's sitting in his room creating a car right there. And he's got a couple of sketch designs, but he can pull in models here. So right now he's got a model of a couple of people sitting in the car. And it gives him a few reference points, and you can even pull in some pictures and say, hey, this is kind of what I want this to look like. So this is another tool that we're using in our camp this summer for industrial design, and we've used this with schools as well. So we've had a few schools come in, create different art projects and all kinds of different stuff in virtual reality.
Holden, get Sonic Ball.
You can kind of see what he's creating here, and it's pretty detailed.
What's Sonic Ball?
Fun game.
And then if we go to the end of this, you can see what a high quality image you can create.
Press online so we can play each other.
Within virtual reality. So just a second here and it'll pop up the final rendering. And so this is the kind of thing that you can pull into like an augmented reality app. So the app that we just did, Arrow, you could actually pull this car into Arrow and actually show that to somebody else without being in a virtual reality headset. So pretty cool way to kind of bridge the gaps. You can create a design on a computer, you can create it in VR, and then you can show it sometimes in augmented reality, you can show it in virtual reality as well. So what does that look like actually showing off a design? Well, this is actually something that Ford did. All right, so talk about real life examples that companies are doing. Ford is using Gravity Sketch. Remember the same exact piece of content that we're talking about here and that we're using at REM5, and you can actually get into this car and see what it feels like before it ever exists. So you see this one, you can sit in the back seat, you can sit in the front seat, you can basically open up the door, you can change the color of the car.
Can you drive the car?
So in this one, you can't drive the car because what they're trying to do here is they're trying to
That would be fun if you could.
see what they like about a design. So you see that right there? So they go, okay, let's see what this would look like as a hatchback. See it? Change the design really quick.
Sonic Ball though?
And then you can walk around that car
I don't know.
as a hatchback. So you can change that really quickly, really easily when you've created something in VR and when you're experiencing it in VR as well. And a lot of these same tools, you can use augmented reality technology as well.
That's cool.
Very cool.
All right. So yeah, so those are some really cool industrial design applications in ways that companies are actually using them. So a couple of the big companies that are using these today, Ford and Bugatti are actually both designing their cars in virtual reality now. So they're not just creating clay models or just doing it on a computer, they're actually doing it in VR. And then you can see there are ways to show off those designs with something as simple as your phone. You can actually create those environments and even create some actions with that as well. Any questions about those things?
You could create like a you could create like a giant modern house.
Yeah, you can absolutely create a house.
Wow.
And, yeah, and so those are created with like we talked about with CAD programs, so computer-aided design programs. And then you can put TVs on in the house. You can put carpet in. You can put different, if you want to change the color, paint or the kind of cabinets or all kinds of different things. Yeah, a lot of different options for creating tools, whether it's architecture or whether it's new products, and showing that off in virtual reality.
Holden,
yeah, any other
friends?
What's that?
I don't know if my mom can allow that.
No, I meant like online.
No.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what that even is.
It's just like online friends where you just are still friends, but you're online. Like Messenger Kids, you can basically FaceTime each other and text each other.
That's sorry, but I don't know if my mom can allow that actually.
Okay, so
All right. Any other questions about what we've gone over today? Can it be used for, okay, so Sophie asked, can this be used for interior designing too? Absolutely. So this is one of the cool things that interior designers are doing, because a lot of times, you know, interior design is about, you know, what goes
my mom's
together,
an interior
right?
designer.
Yeah, so they can pull designs into virtual reality, or even augmented reality, and
But my mom
show
doesn't do like
those designs.
virtual reality though.
Okay.
She just does like, because we're having a remodel at her house anyways.
Yeah, so you can, with VR, you can actually do that remodel, see what it looks like in VR and AR before it's
How
already done.
expensive are VRs?
Like a lot. Like the Oculus Go standalone is $200.
Yep. So it's anywhere from $200 to about $5,000 for the setups that we have at REM5 that take a big, powerful computer to run. So pretty big range.
I rented one from REM5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also it costs it costs a lot of money for the monitors too.
Yep. So everything is expensive, but yeah, there's a lot of capability with these. You know, with interior designing, you can actually see what a house or a business is going to look like before you ever finish it. So that's a really good use for this.
Even simple things like buying furniture online, you're able to use. I know Amazon has a program that you're able to, you know, if it's in your living room, actually, you know, use the augmented reality to look at a couch before you purchase it online.
Yep, and IKEA has that. I think Target has that capability now too.
Yep.
So a lot of companies are adding those capabilities, and they'll actually have the couch or whatever you're looking at be the right size, so you can actually even see if it fits in your space.
My friend Nolan, he has the PS4 VR.
Yeah, it's another option as well. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just ask them. If your mics are on, I'll unmute everybody that has their mics on. But if that's it, we'll do another innovation lab again next week on Thursday at 1 o'clock. We're happy that everybody could join us today.
Hey Travis, quick question.
Yeah.
Are there any new programs from REM5 coming out that I should be aware of?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. We just announced an education program with the Oculus Go's. So some really cool
I might
content
buy
on there.
that. I might buy Oculus Go with the standalone though.
Including, so with that one, we've got things like chemistry. There's a piece on global warming, and then also Apollo 11. But there's 5 days of education content on there, including worksheets that will hopefully help parents as well as kids learn some things in VR. So those are some really cool options. And then we also launched our camps as well. So a lot of the things that we talked about today are actually going to be part of our industrial design camp. So those are some pretty cool camps and really showing a lot of things.
When is the chest thing going to be out? Like the thing for the chest? Like
the chest thing?
Last time someone said there's like going to be like a new thing that like the VR connected to the chest. Like
yeah, so those are coming out. I mean, it's going to be a while before those are really commonly used. What you're asking about is like vests or jackets that you can wear while you're in VR that will actually give you kind of touch or feel when you're wearing them based on what's happening in the experience. But those are going to be a while, probably a couple of years before those are really commonly used.
Because it's super hard to make them.
Yep, super hard to make them. Really hard to integrate them into the content as well. So that's those are a couple of challenges that developers are starting to get over. All right, any other questions from or comments from any of our REM5 team as well?
How do you get how do you like program like it on the computer to go on there and put it like in VR and have the same control as your hands, because it's a little hard to do that.
Yeah, so there are programs.
Video game basically.
Yep. So you're talking about video game design. So that's going to be a little more advanced than we're going to talk about here. But programs like Unity or the Unreal Engine are going to be what you're.
I have one of those games on Unity.
Yep. So Unity is one of those that pops up a lot of times when you load up games, because that's where a lot of games are created, is within Unity. So a lot of VR is created within Unity. Yeah. So that's how you create those. Yeah. All good questions.
Or just normal games.
Yep, even normal games are created in Unity. Yep.
And Half-Brick, cause for Ninja.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. And we'll be back next week with another Innovation Lab, same time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Travis.
Bye.
Nice work.
Thanks everybody for coming.